Hola.
Hey, everybody. The camera's over there, not over
Wait.
there.
Oh, hi. Hi, and I'm wearing my soul condoms, which I gotta stop saying that.
Yeah, bad form on camera.
Well,
Are you hiding from the people?
maybe, but that's the question is that maybe I don't have to stop saying things like soul condoms. Maybe it's the tyrannical voice inside of my head that says you can't have two giraffes. You can't be a children's expressioner and also say naughty things.
It seems way worse to not have two giraffes. Like having one giraffe.
Do you know what having two giraffes means?
No.
Okay.
I just
what do you
imagine-
think? What do you think it means? What is it? The knee jerk.
I think of one lonely giraffe without another giraffe to hang out with.
Whenever I think of people having pets, and just like, whoa, I'm the only cat in this in my reality.
Yeah.
That's
like this
gotta
one back
be
here.
So weird. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the only cat she currently knows.
Is she? Can she show up? This one.
Oh yeah,
right
she's
here.
in there.
This one right here. So about your cat. Your cat is not.
She's got a new hobby.
Yeah.
She's taken up a mild interest in pissing under my chair in the other room.
I would call it the corner of the room. Like, because I don't know if the chair is it. So we remove the pillow, piss again.
Yeah, on the floor though.
Okay, so try removing the chair. I think she'll still piss in that corner.
I think you're right because she didn't pee on the chair this time. She peed underneath.
That's a great experiment to run.
And I've looked it up, and there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot that will deter them from doing that.
Them. Are you saying that all cats are cats?
Is that okay to say?
You know, there's probably a cat committee of cat justice.
Have I offended the cat community? Am I being?
Why don't you ask her?
She doesn't tell me.
Because she speaks on behalf of the cats.
She does.
Your cat is mean.
Yeah, I have a mean cat. Everyone, it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Upon you're telling me more about the cat, I don't know if empathize is the word because I don't know if that's something that's supposed to be local to human inter.
She's a victim of sexual abuse.
See, when you said that, I went from your cat is an asshole and I don't like your cat to like, oh, your cat is a tragedy and maybe I should be nicer to your cat.
Yeah, my cat has severe PTSD.
Okay.
From my ex-girlfriend's cat, who would, he was this just aggressive little fuck of a cat. Loved him. Really good guy. Lindsay, if you're watching this, he was a good cat. But he
not good to other cats.
But not good to this cat. He would chase her around the house all the time. And just rape the shit out of her. Like, wow. You would hear awful sounds coming out of this poor little cat.
Wow.
And he was just you could step in front of him and damn near like accidentally boot him across the room and it wouldn't stop him. He was absolutely committed to forcing himself on this poor little cat.
Now, with that,
and she grew up with that.
With that now known,
what
could be done to help your cat? You know, because I find that with humans, what it is when there's when someone is traumatized, or particularly when they personally are aware that I'm worried about everything that looks like that because I had a very bad experience with one of those at some point.
Yeah.
In order to move that needle to a place where a person, for example, could walk into the room and be
a person,
that thing, and there not be trauma response flags going up. What you need to have is several experiences of one of those being totally safe.
And that doesn't. So the interesting thing about it is she's way better now than she used to be.
Wow, I could only imagine because this thing every time I go by is gonna. I just called her a thing.
The fact that she's even in the room near us right now is tremendous progress. Normally, if there was another person in the house, she would be in some corner, shaking, hiding, having a terrible time. But now she can be in our presence. She just has, very strict boundary demands.
Yeah. And cats are not their boundaries are high and strong. They are fortified walls with turrets.
Yes, but hers are also very kind of like, like, hey, you can...
She was warming up to me earlier today. I was like, is this cat liking me right now, or am I... Because
Did you
the
pet her?
thing about cats... And I didn't.
See, that's wise.
The thing about cats is that, yeah, they'll lure you in...
And then just...
And do all of the things that say, I am a kitty who wishes for pets.
Yes.
And then, as soon as the petting begins, you receive a wound.
Yeah. And that is precisely what she does to almost everybody that walks into this house.
That sort of thing is where that's where my sympathy starts to melt away, and it's just like, you're being a jerk, and whatever happened, maybe that's the reason for this, but it does not justify this behavior.
But that is anthropomorphizing a cat.
I was just talking about cats there.
But she does not
That would be offensive to say of humans.
She does not have the capacity to process these things on her own.
Okay.
So for her, I feel like she gets even more leeway because she lacks the mental capacity to do anything about it.
Now, is this just back to because she's a cat?
Because she's a cat.
Or because she's... Okay.
Because here's essentially what's happening. Is she's saying, wow, I'd really like to connect, even though I'm terrified.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to try for a hot minute, but holy fuck, I wasn't ready for this. I'm suddenly scared. I need you to get away, and this is the only way I can communicate that to you.
That goes deep. So I could speak on many experiences that I've had with humans, but I think I'm going to play it a little safer and speak on behalf of the only person that I think that I have any right to speak on behalf of, which is my goddamn self. And a thing that didn't start from trauma. It started from negative enculturation, or just like the idea was put in my head that Los Angeles, California was scary, and that it would change me, that it would have a negative effect on my being.
Oh, you suddenly become like a vapid, terrible...
That was being told to me all the
schmuck
time.
of a person.
A little, because I was born in a small town.
It does happen to people.
Man, I'm born in a small town.
I have seen it do that
in
to
the
people.
small town. They tell you that you go to Los Angeles and you're going to become one of those, sort of things. And it was just, and I think that I'm really fortified to not, because I was wise enough at age 23 to know that you can't just characterize a city, let alone a huge one with a population of several million. That's not that. I knew that.
Although they're not wrong.
But it's stuck in that. There's that exists here. But okay, so what I'm getting at that is tied in with cat trauma.
Oh yeah,
is that I at this trip did a lot more to I'm warming up to LA. I'm not feeling that because I was just scared about being here, about just because the last time I was here I was invited particularly, and these things make me feel safe. You particularly, I choose you, Pikachu, and here's where you're gonna sleep every night, and you can go off on adventures and whatnot, but you have a place that you'll be able
home base
to stay. Yeah. And I didn't explore much, and I didn't go, and I spent a lot of time doing things that I can do anywhere with my time in Los Angeles.
Which is cool.
Yeah. I was totally down for the other night that we were going to play video games, and I was like, this is awesome. And you know what? I'm not with Chris, I'm not physically present with you that often, so it's there's this thing when I'm in other places of you got to take it, especially for short periods of time. It's you got to do things that are specific to here while you're here. At Burning Man, I try to spend all my time at Burning Man doing things that only can happen at Burning Man.
So, cat rape.
Okay.
How do we bring this around to cat rape?
Okay, so your cat had a series of unfortunate events that has
well put.
that bent her in a direction around her whole reaction to. Doesn't seem like just humans and cats, other beings.
Yeah, everything.
Are scary
everything other than me, particularly.
Yeah. So that's with Los Angeles. I had this sense that being here would make me feel small, and I was also just really worried of like I don't like to spend any time in the meditation of like my art as a competition or like trying to have good art. I don't like to think about it in terms of like making good stuff or like I'm good or impressive. It's like I just want it to be like it's essentially just I'm just a reflexive. I'm just a thing that you can observe.
Okay.
And when I come here, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of people with their inner monologue has a Yelp review for every art thing that they're seeing, and there's that the knee-jerk reaction is like, you're trying to be famous, aren't you? Or you're trying to be successful, and I just don't like the way that makes me feel being observed in that way. But like that spell is being dispelled the more I go and spend time here. But also and also reinforced by the reality of like,
yeah, because Instagram is essentially currency here. Like there is a whole pocket of reality in which your social validity is dependent on your follower count. Like we actually have, I think it's in either Melrose or Hollywood, but there's actually a private mural that's covered in a tent. I'm not sure if it's there anymore. It was definitely there last year, but it's covered by a tent, and they have a bouncer outside, and you can only take a picture with this mural if you have 20,000 or more followers on Instagram, or if you have one of those little blue checks. You have to have a verified account.
Is there somebody guarding it with a spear?
Yeah, there's a security guard.
What do they do if you try? They security guard you?
They get you the fuck out because it's covered in a tent. You have to walk into this tent in order to even get to see the mural. And the mural's covered up. And so you can only do it if you have 20,000 followers.
That is so. What's that show? I haven't watched it in a while. Black Mirror. That episode of Black Mirror where the like currency.
The girl.
And that I thought was like that almost. And then here's the thing. When I've said this to folks, there's things about that seem like they might be a little bit more. Money is what we're doing now, and you can get money without any choice or consent. Like you can render a situation where I am cha-ching, the cha-ching must happen, and nobody else needs to, like you just are. It's I mean it's essentially a game of getting in the way of where money is with, because money's whizzing around all the time, and you get in the way of it. You set up, because I know people who, and myself, have done a lot of things where like, oh my god, I just did a ton of value, but I didn't set up a threshold. I didn't set up a ticket-taking thing, and that's the point that makes you the money. You set up a threshold, and then the river of money is going by, and you're cha-chinging for every that, and a bunch of current of human attention and approval and appreciation and value is coming through. But I didn't set up the thing that says that you need this many Instagram followers in order to take a mural with this thing. So, and that's how you accrue money. So I was thinking when I saw that episode of Black Mirror, when I think about the idea of the like economy. I think that maybe, I know we see it as so spooky because it's so different from what we got going on now. I think it's a little better than money, though. It's a little better than, because at least it requires somebody else making the choice, no matter how haphazard it is, of saying, you, boom, approve, like, I do like that.
But the whole point of that episode is that gets so easily weaponized.
And has money not? And I'm not anti-capitalist at all.
The statement was that it's better.
A little
with likes, like I can't just get away with emptying your bank account. Sure. I can't get a group of friends together and say, "Hey, let's financially fuck Zach into the ground by pushing a few buttons."
Well,
and get away with it legally.
Okay, there's pros and cons. Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate now, or I'm actually just like I'm just retreating from what I was going to be making a statement.
Minor backpedaling.
I think the like economy thing might be a little better than money, just because every vote represents a person, as opposed to this. Because here's the thing about money, and
money's private property, though.
But money is also generated out of the ether now, and that's what makes it super duper weird. And I think that like the stage that we're in right now, and I'm not even going to get into the whole, because I don't really understand so much. There was a time where I was very much, the central problem is the Federal Reserve. We got to end the Fed, sort of thing. And I think that things have just been made so gargantuously complex AF that like there's just what the fuck are we gonna do? And I think that there is a lot of folks who are aware right now, like, this is entirely fucked and based in nothing. I'm doing really, really well. I'm gonna get a mansion in Costa Rica or 12, and this, I don't know. There's gonna be a point where it's gonna be like, whoa, this has gotten beyond
unmanageable.
It's like you play in a game of Monopoly, and there's like, and it starts, and it's gonna be 3 like adults, and then little Susie comes in. She's like, I want to play Monopoly, and everybody's like, oh, we were totally about to do like a thing where it was totally like it had a basis and objectivity and whatnot, and there was going to be like a finite amount of resources, and we were going to play this game correctly. And she's like, no, I'm playing, and it's like, all right, we're doing it. And then Susie starts being like, and I get this, and I get this, and I get this, and you know what? Now that's all. This is money now, and these, every one of these doubloons count as Monopoly money, and now I'm just, and then she just and gushes so much.
You spend so much more time with children than I do.
Yeah, I've seen this happen, and I think it's. I'm not an authority person with children. I've learned that there's some point where I got to step in and be like, hey, and
those are not doubloons, Susie.
But
put them back.
Not with bad make believing though, because I have to trust that they tend to figure it out amongst each other, because you have the experience of a game that isn't a game. And I think that there's built-in repercussions to that. It's very it's very situationally sensitive with children and just with people.
So, what about the fact that I think we kind of already live in a like economy, right? If you're if you do something socially unacceptable that enough people notice, those people that notice, that find your behavior unacceptable, now have the power to get you fired.
Yeah.
And essentially make you unhireable ever again.
Yeah.
So you can get actually financially fucked in the ground by a bunch of people pushing buttons on social media.
Sure. So just I'm talking about like the marriage of these things, but not even the marriage, just the likes taking over. Because I mean, it's getting really, really hard to argue that paper and metal money ain't got 100 years. I don't even think it has 30. We can't.
I don't. What's going to replace it? Not Bitcoin.
I'm just saying some sort of digital thing. Well, I mean, we'll look at it this way. Like, look at the difference between the year 2000 and 2018 in like how often you see paper money, and how often you see cash only, and how often somebody doesn't respond with, "I just have a card, bro." You know, like so that amount of time, and now give that another 20 years. And if things are changing at the same rate, which they tend to, in fact, it tends to exponentially accelerate. Yeah. What are we looking at? What are we thinking? And it's just, it's like the same thing with with global unity stuff. Like when you look at World War II to now, in terms of just the game and how it's played. I mean, we went from a thing where there was the
entire world bombing the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
But we also do war different. We don't do physical war.
Exactly,
anymore.
but the
we
game
do economic
just
war.
The change.
Yeah,
I'm not saying necessarily like from violence to peace so much as like the utter difference of like now that the economic game is so much more relevant. It's just so much more relevant, and folks don't want to. China and the U.S. don't want to throw stones. Like that would be ridiculous.
That would be cataclysmic.
It is. And same with U.S., Russia, everybody knows that it's barely a card on the table. Mm-hmm. It's not a thing. But you gotta posture like it's a thing because
it still kind of is.
And it's like plausible, I suppose.
Yeah, it's still possible enough to be a threat.
It would be a bad move for everyone.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I can't personally think of anything that I'd be okay with replacing money, because money as a concept I think makes a whole fucking hell of a lot of sense.
Good pun.
Because it's like, because the whole idea was like, hey, I have 6 chickens and you have 2 cows, and it's like, let me trade you. And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't really want chickens. I want turkeys.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, well, let me trade a turkey.
And it
blah, blah,
delivered
blah.
us from the monarchies. That's the big thing, that when folks start getting really anti-capitalistic, it's like, here, hold on, can we, if we could rephrase that in a way that is sane and not super duper wrong, which I mean, if you can be anti contemporary capitalism, this is no longer working. But to say that this thing delivered us from the kings and emperors,
and it's also capitalism itself is developing the fuck out of Africa. Like Africa is like all over Africa is some of like.
I'm sure that's not going smoothly in terms of everybody getting it fairly, but like,
well, of course not. But it works better than anything else
happening.
we have.
And that's the thing, is like progress.
Every other system just
never
fucks us into the ground.
Yeah.
At least this, like, some people are winning, and it's a flexible enough structure that it can be messed with.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the other structures are super rigid and can't be messed with. It's like, this is just what it is.
Yeah.
But with capitalism, it's like you can fuck with it.
I don't know much about the particulars of how capitalism is doing with Africa, but I could assume there's
it's
ton
the fastest
of
growing
injustices
economy
and
on the planet.
Yeah.
There's less injustices than there were before. Like, think about
That
how
tends
fucked
to
up
be
it
the
was
case.
before, and now that suddenly people have money, it's like you can afford all kinds of other things.
That
you
tends to
couldn't
be the
before.
case, and that's like, and that like, you can get yelled at in some circles for saying that, but like, things have always gotten kinder.
Yeah, this is the
It's
best
like-
time in
and
human
to-
history to be alive.
So if you take a snapshot and you just have all of your super developed 2018 morals and whatnot, and you can, there's still a ton that is morally shit.
And our
but if you
2018
juxtapose it next to 2000, I mean, well, even year 2000,
And
but,
plus,
but
our
1950, it's like,
And yeah,
we're getting better. It's getting
and
better.
even in no matter what, 2018 United States subjective morality is bullshit to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and that's so heartening to me. I found that at Burning Man a ton, because I was worried that the turtle might get accused of cultural appropriation for singing in different languages that I am not fluent in. That I have learned these cute sentences to "Eres mi familia tortuga, come no kokoro," that everybody was just delighted, or everybody that came and spoke to me, and everybody that I could witness when the performances were going on. I just saw people light up when their language was being sung by a magical turtle puppet. And my few in-depth conversations that I've had about this are usually just so like, I don't even understand what this thing is in America, where you're all just like worried about, you like what you like us, and we're supposed to be upset that you like, or that your mimicry is a form of flattery, and that you want to. I don't understand.
Especially when you consider that, like, when it comes to like media and things like that, like a huge portion of like music in Eastern countries and Asian countries and in European countries, if they make a piece of media like a movie or a song or something like that, and it gets popular in America, that's the ultimate success.
Yeah. Well, to me, that emotionally, it would be the ultimate success to have the magical turtle medicine be popular in Mexico and Japan. That would be huge.
Apparently, it's really easy to get big in Japan. I have friends that have like a very
you just
minor
eat the
band.
red mushroom, and you just
People are significantly taller in Japan than I expected. I was gonna make all these like, oh, everybody's big in Japan, but no. They're just normal-sized people. I thought they were very small. I have a Japanese grandma, and she was 4'11". I expected all of them to be small. That was not the case. I was disappointed.
So how this relates to the cat with money?
Oh shit!
Well, cat trauma moving the needle of your psycho situation. I like to say, wait, psychosituational? I would say,
yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah. So the psychosituational situation with your cat in not trusting other creatures other than yourself, and that's the thing. She's had numerous experiences with you being not only safe but awesome, to her. So, and I made the example of Los Angeles. I've moved the needle a little bit more, but so with money and the like economy. But let's start with money. Like some folks, and I've lived most of my life having a shit relationship with money, and it was just this mean thing that was bad to me. It was like this thing that this toaster coil that you don't touch because it's always orange and it'll always hurt you. You know, there was
That's
a stand-up
fair.
comedian. I don't remember. I wish I could attribute it, but she said, "It's called Pop Tart, not reach in and get tart." Because you learn. You know, you learn that. So I learned that like it's time spent with my consciousness being in just in the thought of money or like there was a time where I really realized like I should stop looking at that bank account or even thinking about it. I should not go into debt, and I've always I didn't do the college thing. Well, I did a Specs Howard media thing. It was not much. So I've never experienced being
So you don't have like
I've never had
$50,000
10
in
grand
debt.
plus of debt at any point in my life.
Yeah.
But I've also never had a surplus of beyond 3,000, and I'm 30. And that's like there's a lot of like when you were telling me about the people who in LA who will like forthrightly say like call someone a loser for not having the best this and the best that. It's like I wonder how much of a loser they think I would be, because it's like I've been like going fairly hard and trying to do my art and trying to do the thing.
I mean, people camp out for weeks to get a new iPhone.
Yeah,
Simply because they need to be seen with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought that. So I mean, I seek one too because of the utility.
I just hate Apple, so I use Google.
Yeah, it's so simple. They make it so simple.
But so is Android. But it's also
I had an Android and it wasn't as simple to me. but I was also wired up. Okay, back to that. So launch on that. Let me give you a question and I'll shut up for a moment. What's your relationship with money?
I like it.
Have you always?
No. I used to be an anarchist punk. When I was in high school, my goal in life was to be homeless. I lived in Orange County, California, where it was 75 degrees all year round. I was by the beach. Me and my friends spent almost all of our time at the beach or skateboarding somewhere. And I was like, hey, you know, like, it never really gets cold enough here to be a problem. Like, if I wanted to, which I do want to, I could just be homeless and live on the beach and never have to worry about anything ever again.
Well, that's a good cushion. That's a good cushion. This will never go so wrong as to where I will be in, like, physical danger.
Yeah. And it's like plenty of high-class restaurants by there that I could easily dumpster dive and get really good food from. It would never have been a problem. And that was my goal in life. But then I met girls.
Oh, jeez.
It turns out that's not good enough for most women. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. So, like, security is a thing. Other people desire security in a way that I don't. And if I want to enjoy the presence and embrace of a warm, pleasant female person, then I need to develop some sense of ability to create security and positive experience, like shelter and food. And so I was like, well, okay, let me figure that out. And now I don't know, I like money a lot now. Like I was able to build this podcast studio with money that I earned.
Yeah.
And I have a cool apartment in Los Angeles, California with money that I earned. And I have almost all the musical instruments I'd ever want to own. And I make money by helping people with their emotions. Like it's very, very cool.
Well, that's a big thing that changes the relationship too, is like if you can find a thing where the thing in which you're interfacing with the whole idea of money, currency, capitalism, whatever you want to call it, commerce. Mm-hmm. If your lifestyle with commerce, lifestyle wasn't the best word. If your dealings in commerce is something that actually feeds your sense of integrity and
mm-hmm.
worthwhileness and service to the world, then yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, I got to listen to some really awesome personal stories of like super toxic relationships last night, and it really occurred to me. It's like, whoa, you know, if that's what sex and romance is to you, that's what your experience is, then like, God, that's a needle that has to be moved with you know, that's like if the person that you go to for your because you don't, it's not just the romance and stuff. Your human warmth experiences will come
Intimacy,
from that
connection,
person as
all
well,
that
and
shit.
it just probably bleeds into everything that other is to you. Mm-hmm. You know,
and it's gross.
Yeah,
and it makes it so you not only can't recognize a good thing when you see it, but if you do recognize it, you're likely scared of it.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking the other day of like. I want to explore that more of why is it that when somebody like genuinely like is coming at me with the unconditional love and like I see you and I see your flaws, and not only love you despite them but almost because of them as well. Like I love when somebody comes at me with this real love. I'm usually very like, no thank you. But when there's this and I'm not saying that all my past flings, relationships, if you will, have been shallow nonsense, but when there's something that is I've definitely been like, oh yes please, when it's like, oh, I can see all the ways that this person's gonna be,
just mind fuck me.
And
yeah,
why?
It's weird.
Why? Because I'm aware and walking into it. Why?
So I actually had a realization about this last night as I was meditating before bed, because I am, as you know, having to put an end to a toxic situation that I'm in. She's a beautiful, good person, but we're a bad chemical reaction, and we have bad impacts on each other, and we make each other angry, and we make each other likely not the best version of ourselves. And so I have to cut this thing off because it's hurting me and it's hurting her. And I was sitting there meditating on why it was so difficult for me to do. Because most of the time, it's very easy for me to acknowledge somebody that's bad for my trajectory in life and put them aside because my trajectory is more important than emotional needs for the most part. But I had this very bizarre thought that I've never noticed myself have before, and it was very alarming to me. It was, at least she's willing to fight with me.
Yeah, that's a big thing for a lot of folks. Like I've experienced this a ton before. I've a lot of the being the rejectee experiences that I've had was because I don't fight. I'll either just be like, okay, sure, yeah, take what you, or I'll just be like, I don't want to talk about that, or just like, I won't let. There's been times where I decisively wasn't letting someone get my goat and wasn't responding as combatively as they liked, and it's been like specifically articulated to me before. It's like, you're not willing to like fight and contend with me, and I need that, and
that I hear that very commonly.
Yeah.
And I agree to that to a certain degree.
I get it a lot.
Because you may have a different experience of this, but I experience sexual polarity as the thing that creates tension.
Okay.
And so the fights come from that tension. And so the lack of fighting to a certain degree is lack of passion and lack of sexual charge.
That's what I see it as.
Yeah, and so I think they do go together, and I think you do have to fight with the person.
Not care.
Yeah. But at the same, or you're it's not necessarily that you don't care, it's that you've retracted the thing that would give this yummy, juicy passionness, because you don't want the shadow side of it.
And you know what it's been for me a lot before is I just don't want to fight about that. It's like, can you if you can come up with something a little bit more intriguing, or like if it's some intellectual disagreement. I mean, I do not think that being you don't have to think similar or have similar worldviews to have a good, sensuous,
for sure,
visceral, or like romantic, or even like you can fully like see and love someone and be like on the opposite sides of, say, the political spectrum, or say like just like I've had things where I've been super duper magnetized by somebody who's like pretty angry at the world, as where I'm trying to do this whole like opposite of that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, they're embodying the half of your psyche that you don't own.
Yeah, I'm not like, if there was another me right now in front of me, I would not start making out with him. And that's almost, I almost want to say that's the least, I'm not calling myself ugly, but that's the least attractive thing to me, is to clone me and to then have to or even, and to spend a date too, like the because I'm not.
Oh, I think I would have a great time with you.
I would be good friends with myself, because we'd be really pragmatic about how we can tag team this shit, and it'd be like, well, you know what I know, so let's do this. But as far as like,
I'd be
really
a terrible
enjoying each other's company,
partner for myself, because I'd have all the same strengths and all the same weaknesses. So what would I do? Just duplicate all my work? Yeah.
I would just have that I would send that turtle off to the Hong Kong or something, to be like, you set up shop and do what you do there, and we'll meet in the middle and we'll share contacts.
Okay, that seems worthwhile.
Yeah,
I could do that,
I suppose. But anyway, I wouldn't want to kiss it.
No. God, that would be bizarre.
Yeah, I just really enjoy contrast and difference and all. I'm not attracted to like homogeny. Like I just am so magnetized to someone very different from me.
Yeah, I mean the person I have loved more than any other human being on the face of the planet is somebody that sees the world so different than me. She was able to look me in the eye and tell me that my worldview holds zero value. And this is the woman I loved more than I've ever loved another human being. So I think there is something to the opposition, but I also think a lot of the time we can end up loving people, like I said earlier, that inhabit and embody certain parts of our psyche that we don't own but desperately need. And so we can often love them as a possibility of like, wow, look at this missing piece of myself that I see it being acted out, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful, and it's fantastic, and God damn it, I wish I could have more of that, because that's an innate thing, because you can have more of it if you would just accept the damn thing, but we're getting it vicariously through other people.
I think that, like, so I'm going more in the, like, the psychomagical direction, and you're more, like, psychotherapeutic, more like, you want to speak to people in a way that is grounded in stuff like studies. And things like factoids.
Things that are repeatable.
Yeah.
Repeatable and beneficial. That's what I'm interested in.
And that's, well, still, for me with the psychomagical, which is really just wording to me. Like, I just like to word things in a way that is what I would call magical. Because it's just more fun for me. And I think if something's fun, you're more likely to do it. You know, if we could generate, electricity from... exercise bikes, or just hook someone up to an EKG so they can just play their favorite racket sport, or like put it on somebody's wrist and every jerk is like meep, 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 and like just watch the energy surplus just surge, because with humans you make it funsies and we'll do it more and more.
Yeah, and that's something interesting I've noticed about your communication style is I would listen to you say things and I'd be like, wow, that was a 5-minute rant that I thought was about nothing, but at the end suddenly I know a lot more about things.
Well, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know what I'm gotten a lot better at living since I've perceived myself as just watching the me show from the most intimate place, and it hurts the most when I think of it as like I am me and this is who I am and what I'm doing. As in like that's when I go down to Suffertown when I'm already in sadsy mode, and then it clicks in of like I am this, as opposed to I'm watching or experiencing this. So I can be all the sads as long as I remain meta. But with happiness it's the opposite, because the more I am the thing when happy, the more I am happy, as opposed to observing, experiencing happiness.
Yeah, plus being happy means that you can be the thing that happiness was taken away from.
Yeah. This conversation has been a thing throughout. This is like a super, super dark conversation. Let's only get a little bit into it. But I remember being really young and having like one of those sleepover conversations of like, I'm on the top bunk and there's a friend down here, and we're talking about like what's the worst thing that could possibly happen to a person? Who's having it the worst in the world? And we agreed that it's not someone who was just born into utter depravity and just
someone who lost everything.
Yeah, because that's the worst thing. To summarize would be like somebody who was born into like wealth and affluence and like love affluence and like really supportive family and just knew love and got some experiences, some little dips into what the opposite was, and had the compassion of those who are in Suffertown, and like you did the whole like Siddhartha thing and went out and saw the suffering turtles of thy kingdom, and like, oh my God, I've been in this castle, and then something happens, like they get kidnapped and taken to some sort of dungeon scenario and whatnot, like, and that's the worst, because how beautiful life can be, and now you are in a place, or like imprisoned, prison to me is just like
wrongly imprisoned. Somebody wrongly imprisoned, I think, has it just about worse than almost anybody.
That's the worst.
Somebody who had a good life and is wrongly imprisoned.
Yeah, and
with kids.
Shit, that's a reality.
That's probably bottom of the barrel.
God damn it, that's the worst. Yeah, that is so bad. that is anyway.
Yeah, and there's a ton of ways it can happen.
I think that that's and how I would say this psychomagically of how I personally deal with the potential to experience the anxiety of the plausible realities of the world that we live in, both for myself and the empathetic observation of others' lives, and just like, oh my God, don't do this to my turtles, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The way I deal with that all is that it actually seems like the mechanism of the thing, that the best possible reality, like the best possible real objective thing that is happening, not just to me but everyone, the best thing I can do is like get poised here, maybe poised wasn't the word, get to not just position myself, but orient my mind and emotions and my whole being be doing the most helpful, best thing that I can do here, that theoretically there's some path where it might actually like save the world, sort of thing. And not necessarily to go forth as if we're gonna save the world, but to be doing it wholeheartedly, like this is helping, and I'm not just doing it to feel like I'm helping, but I might actually be moving the needle on a grand scale. And just do that, live your whole life that way. And the thing about it is you will make some help and some progress,
mm-hmm.
but the being that is the least anxious place I can be.
Yeah.
Because when I know that I'm not part of the strange I wish to see in the world, sort of thing, when the sads come and when the fear comes, it's so much worse, because I can actually make the case to myself that I'm surrendering to the swamp of sadness,
mm-hmm.
or that I'm and the self-deprecating voices are way louder because they have way more grounds in reality.
Well, that's
like,
the thing.
You suck.
It because of that, it seems like we're built for that. It seems like we are specifically built and put together with not necessarily the intention, like not like some grand design or anything, but we seem to be built to where the optimal way of functioning is being honest about what we care about most in the world and taking consistent action to make that a reality. If we do that, we experience psychological well-being, we experience as good relationships as we can essentially hope for. It puts everything else in perspective, where it's like, oh, you need to get sleep so that you can do the thing better, and you need to eat well so that you can be at your best, and it puts everything else into position where you have to live the optimal way, otherwise you won't get the thing done and you won't have the well-being. Mm-hmm. And so it's very bizarre to me that we as human beings seem to be built for that specific endeavor, and to not do it is to create psychological
it's not so
dis-ease.
Obvious right now. And it doesn't take just some mouth such as mine saying it and being like, oh, that I think I might agree with that, or as some would say, I am resonating with that. It's like, it's that, and then I think you try it out, and you like really sincerely try it out. And the last like 2 years, I've been really trying that out. But also, it's been really confusing as to what my best self would be, what my most helpful self would be, what the best service. Now I've found a thing that I can do in the world and be in the world that I like. There's just no argument in my head. That's it. That's like the best thing. And now the question is just like how much of the other things that I used to do should carry on, or how much focus should go into this thing.
Well, I don't think it's ever really an end. I don't think it's a place you end up. I think it's a marker that's always moving, right? Because it's the struggle itself that has you be the best person, not the achievement of it, or not the being the thing. It's the working towards becoming the thing that makes you better. And so as far as like the end goal of like what the best version of you is, that's always going to be just a few steps ahead of what you currently are.
Yeah.
So even if you, whatever your vision is of the best you now, even if you become that, the best you will still be the vision that you have of yourself 3 to 4 to 5 steps ahead of that.
The best me, and I think that this might be ubiquitous. I I think that I'm at my best when I'm not only not intimidated by the immensity of the suffering or whatever injustice or the badness to combat here. When I just feel, I call it the ever-present hum of global suffering. When I can when I can have that present at all times and know that it's like, nah, that is real and it is a thing. And we are trying to reduce, if not, are we trying to eliminate it though? Because the value of my own suffering is really, really apparent to me. If I could go and make my life not have all the things that I think were the really bad suffery stuff, I wouldn't be cool.
Yeah, likewise.
And I don't know if I'm cool yet, but I'm way cooler than I was before bad stuff happened to me.
So I don't think for me the goal isn't like the end of suffering. I'm not entirely certain that's plausible or even a good goal to shoot for. But for me, the goal is integration of all opposites. Because as far as I'm concerned, suffering seems to be a thing that happens when there are two opposing ideas that aren't allowed to coexist. Other than physical suffering. Like if somebody's like cutting your fucking fingers off, then, that's obviously different. But psychological suffering and interpersonal suffering and existential suffering are essentially just the combination of two ideas that aren't allowed to coexist. And so I think the integration of all opposites and allowing conflicting ideas to coexist and find the use and utility in both of them at the same time, I think that's probably as close to the end of suffering as is worth shooting for, and that's my goal.
Yeah. So I didn't finish that thing, and it was really good that you that elaborated on this way more. I am my best and feel my most like I'm just doing the best thing that I could do with the situation. Where that immensity of global suffering is no reason not to go at this in a way that is, and it's not full throttle is the thing, because you wear yourself out, and you ever heard the highest priority of a revolutionary is survival sort of thing, and that could be, you could replace revolutionary with nurse, or puppeteer, therapist, helpy helper. The highest priority of a helpy helper is to remain alive. So you can burn out and have a very short and frantic career in world savvy helpy good stuff. Or you could plant yourself in a way, and this is the big decision that I'm not sure of. You can plant yourself in a community, in a physical place on Earth, and do great stuff intimately with individuals there. I mean, you can be. I've heard these stories recently of these people in relationships and whatnot, where it's like they're only really spending time with.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Mono. What? That's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whoa.
I don't know.
Whoa.
That doesn't seem right.
I can't. But I can't. I never say never, but I don't see how that could.
Never say never,
be
but you can say
sane.
no thanks.
Yeah.
And
yeah, no thanks. Yeah, just so yeah, withdrawing it from the thing of observing somebody else and judging the
I mean, if people have it,
of
that's fantastic.
If you're, but it's like, it's almost like, are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you really? Are
yeah.
you?
It's like, are you sure you're not codependent?
Yeah. Anywho, the choice as to whether or not to be planted and rooted in a place like, say, Detroit, Michigan area, or for me, like a huge thing that I've been considering, because so when I say Detroit, I refer to the entire metro fractal of the thing, which is a huge area, and it goes like to me, you're the thing of Detroit is the whole area that stemmed from Detroit. It's huge. So like Ann Arbor isn't Detroit, is another place. Lansing is its own Lansing, but to me, I just see it as the whole that. Now you can get into the particulars and be like, there are folks who would say that Hazel Park is a place that is very, very near. Everybody thinks of 8 Mile. So there's like Hazel Park and Ferndale are right there on 8 Mile, and there's folks who would say like that's not Detroit. To me, that's like, okay, that's quite that's a formality to say that we're separating these things because of a different postal code or whether they're so integrally connected. They're so the same thing. They're not anyway.
But yeah, that's what I'm here doing in LA.
Michigan, like to say, because Michigan seems so this is it seems manageable to me. If I made my world that peninsula,
like
that
Michigan,
that I could really suddenly being really, really helpful on a large scale, or like just if I'm seeing that as a task or something that I'm trying to do, that doesn't seem that daunting. It just seems like, oh my God, we could do so much in Michigan if our world is Michigan. And like, how different would the doings be if there's focus on that? California's a tad larger.
I was going to say, I do feel that way, because as far as I'm concerned, California's pretty much just separated into Los Angeles and the Bay Area. Everything else in the middle.
San Diego too, I think, is a thing. They call it part of but it's kind of LA.
No, it's 3 hours away.
But it's SoCal, North.
Yeah, it goes Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego. So San Diego's 3 hours away, and it's pointless.
You think it's a pointless place?
I think it's a pointless place.
I like it a bunch.
I have zero interest in going to San Diego.
I like it a bunch. I like San Diego a bunch.
I mean, it's like, if you
make it very clear, if you're, I like San Diego.
Oh, if you're from San Diego, I may like you. I just might not visit you, because we have beaches here.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, what are you gonna do? Go to the beach?
I just the time that I spent there, it was with Halcyon, and it was cool.
Nice.
I was just looking around like, it is cool. I mean, everything has its things where it's like, this is, like the what we call fakery, which I could launch so much into that tangent of like, fake. There are some things that are so authentically inauthentic.
I just don't think there's anything you could do in San Diego that you couldn't likely do better either in Orange County or Los Angeles.
Yeah, anything you can do, I can do better.
Like, what are we gonna do? Go to the beach? Oh, we got plenty here. What are you gonna do? Eat some really good food? Oh, we probably have way more here.
But it's a little less massive, and that's good to some people.
Oh, yeah, see, it's not to me.
Oh, you like massiveness.
I like lots of things happening, and I like cities and lots of excitement and being able to walk around downtown. That's what scares the
hell out of me about the LA thing. I am a person who is, the bane of my existence is what happens to me when I'm given choices. So you get like, what do you call it? Analysis paralysis? It's very difficult for me to sound off on anything when there's multiple ways, because I know that there's incredible value in each of the things, and great peril in everything. So it's like I find in some ways I can make an argument that I'm super duper free and whatnot, but like really there's some things where I love when the choice is made for me. Every year I bring less stuff to Burning Man, and every year I have a better experience because I spend less time shuffling through choices. I have these shoes. Those are the shoes. Boom, and I go out, because I'm great at experiencing things when I'm not toggling choices. Just last night, I shut off and became unfun and turtled up when I started thinking about how am I getting back to Chris's. I just like it stopped me from being able to enjoy it.
Which makes sense.
And I was asked by someone like, how you doing? And my response is like, just starting to get like anxious about like I'm in a place that I don't know, and I don't know what I'm gonna do if I'm gonna get home, sort of thing. And I could have just, if I would have just sounded off, you have one option, it's $20 for an Uber. Yeah, that's back compared to,
it's better than not having a place to go.
Yeah, that's that's inoptimal back home to pay $20 for a 20-minute drive, but okay. All right, and if I would have just soundly made that choice, and I'll do that when I have to leave, I'll do that. I would have saved all this time of not being able to focus on what's going on in front of me, and it gets bad, and then I start being upset with myself for not making the choice,
and it spirals and snowballs.
I can't wait to have a manager, and to make. I want to find someone that I like really really trust, knows what we're trying to do, and have a lot of delineation, is that the right, negotiations about before, and then I like sign off, and I'm like, all right, I'm now your I'm your ammo, I am your arrow, you are the bow, and just do stuff, have me do stuff, and I will do the stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I would love that.
I would also love that.
I would love that because once I'm in the place doing the thing, there's tons of freedom. And that's what I realized about called myself a nonsense man. At one point, the nonsense man. And I'm actually having a funeral at Nonsense Night this year.
Is he dead?
The nonsense man shall die, so that a nonsense man may multiply, sort of thing. Anyway, because I'm ridiculous inside of the boxes. without the box, there is no painting. There is no beauty. I found I love boxes. Put me in a box, bro.
Yeah, I'm suddenly finding a lot of freedom in that as well.
Sure.
Where it's like I used to never want to commit to. I think you and I talked about this the other day. Where I didn't want to commit to a specific direction, and I didn't want to commit to a specific path or message or thing. I wanted to just like shotgun spray a whole bunch of ideas all over people and hope to God that some of it stuck. But now that I'm committing to a singular message and a singular purpose and a singular vision and desire for the world, I'm finding a shit ton of freedom for all the other modes of expression. Like, now that I know where I'm aiming, it's like, okay, I can still have political conversations, but they need to be aimed in this direction.
Yeah.
Can still talk about comic books. Can still talk about video games. Can still make memes. Can still talk shit and tease people. Can still do all of this. But it's all in the service of where I'm going.
Word.
So there's a tremendous amount of freedom.
Yeah, I'm that's what I'm figuring out about myself. Like, is these two conversations we've had recorded in the last 2 days, am I diverting from my path in some way? Because there's a voice in me that says that it's like I should become the magical turtle medicine turtle and do that and be that publicly, and then these sort of conversations can happen amongst friends, and they'll be augmenting everything that I think and am all the time. It's just we don't present that because, and the reason why I wouldn't is because there is the possibility. But here's something I didn't consider too. There's the possibility of, on the negative, some parent of a child that would receive the magical turtle medicine expressions, that parent cutting off that vista and shutting their
This guy talks about cat rape.
Yeah, although I did not say that. I just.
This guy talks with a guy that talks about cat rape.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's a second hand.
Hey, you're guilty by association right now.
Yeah. So that to me that's such a detrimental thing to be avoided. A child not being able to hear these songs, or just the expressions, because the turtle's going to do a whole bunch because of a tyrannical parent with a particular idea of what they, that I should get around that by washing my available public expressions of all of the possible things that could be misconstrued as, because I don't really actually have much of an opinion inside, and that's becoming a thing that is like, there's people who are super duper offended by the idea of
not having an opinion,
not having a side.
Yeah, like, what are you, indecisive, bro? Now's go time. You need to pick a side, dude. You're either for us or against us.
Yeah. Well, it's like I'm watching the oil in the water, and there's folks telling me to say which is cooler, and it's like, no, I like what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But with this, it's like, I don't like what reality is doing right now necessarily. There's a lot. I mean, I could say that this is a dark time sort of thing, or I could say that this is a contentious time, or so whatever. But it's always beautiful at points, and holistically beautiful. And that's what I realized about my sadsy moments of looking at reality, or getting really angry about stuff. I'm not being holistic about the whole thing. When I look at it with joy and see it as beautiful, I'm actually considering all parts, like even the wretched darknesses of reality that I found. And that's a thing. Anyway, yeah. What I haven't considered, which I'm thinking about right now via this conversation, thank you, is how much gooder it could be for a very lucid, whatever you want to say it, conscious, aware of the magnitude, the immensity of the task, the role of parenting, in terms of like shepherding a new consciousness into what they will become in the world that they will see. Like how huge that is to know that, like, oh, well, the turtle who says, like the same turtle who says, we are all one small and all unfolding, is it also can elaborate on a subject like.
I'd like to hear Bob Ross's personal thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear Mr. Rogers' political alignment.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear, who else is there? I'd like to hear Steve Irwin's thoughts on death.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
he did say some stuff. He was, I think he pretty specifically and intensely articulated his thoughts about what if he died doing this.
Really?
I think there's a good amount of video of him being like, look, if this, I'm putting myself in dangerous situations all the time, and I'm pretty sure that I've heard him speak about that.
That's fucking cool.
And how much better does it make you feel about that? As horrifying as that?
Oh, it makes me feel amazing.
Because it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like to know that somebody was like, I understood the risks, and he was so noble. I think Turtle was so noble, and that's the thing too. Is like,
because he's not just like a naive schmuck of a Dr. Doolittle wannabe. He's like knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I perceive him as pretty pure relative to other folks, but the thing, and that's what happens sometimes with like really really angelic humans. Like with my definition of angelic, of like, wow, it's like you don't have as much of the bad going on. Like you're just this. You're this consciousness that is so good that you just do good and are good, and where you go, good follows, sort of thing. Is that I forgot what I was going to say.
I mean, a lot of times that comes from conquering the bad.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
If they're not horrifically naive perspective.
Yeah, and it's not just the conquering. So I had a really good talk with somebody who had a horrifying origin story, like, and I've got these intensify as I go on, because I started this a friend of mine would like said like, let's exchange life stories, and then I did that with a friend of mine the next day, and like, holy God, I was just like, it just made me so much more open to the possibility of when I meet someone, particularly if they're being a meanie, it's like there's some stuff that you can learn, like the cat. There's some stuff that you might learn about that cat's origin story of why she is being a meanie now, that would just have you entirely change your approach and just be like, whoa, I'm going to try to be the opposite of the experiences that led to this point.
Yeah, like that quote, you can't hate anyone if you know them well enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can disapprove of that. Like you end up disapproving holistically of the whole situation. Mm-hmm. Of like, but it's like it's so much better to try to understand, I think. Anyway, I was saying I got to hear a really horrifying origin story from someone, and then like I think I specifically asked like, so how would you say to others like why you've chosen to now be this awesome person who's doing so much good in the world? And they were like, well, I spent so much time in the meditation of suffering and badness and anger and abuse and whatnot that I'm just like done with that. I choose. So you think it's happening now?
Yeah,
the cat is for those just hearing audio. This cat is approaching me. All right, now going away.
Yeah, that was short lived.
So anyway, and you know what might be that is like when folks talk about vibe. Mm-hmm. Vibrations and stuff like that. For a moment, I was this super lovable thing, and then I look over and I got like, oh, is she gonna scratch me? And then
then she's like, fuck it.
Yeah. So the person pretty much said like, I spent so much time suffering and being abused and probably doing a little abusing myself that it's like I've just seen that movie so much that it's not exciting, and now I'm just like focusing on the exact opposite. So I seem like an angel, but really you just tuned in at a cool time.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. Like, I had mental illness from the time I was 7 on. You know, like I saw my dad die on the bathroom floor of my childhood home, and it fucked me up. And it's like as soon as you're presented with a choice, and you know, because like mental illness, like that starts early on, is kind of like a roller coaster that you didn't mean to get on. But, like, you're there now, and you're like, well, fuck, I have to ride this bitch all the way through to the end, because these restraints aren't going to come off until I get to the end of the ride. And so, as soon as you're presented with a choice, you're like, whoa. Like, I don't have to do this anymore? Like, okay. Like, so it's either do the really difficult thing and face the darkness and face the shadow and face malevolence and figure out what to do with it, or not. And so it's like, when you're presented with your options, it's like, well, the fuck choice do I have?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times you do see truly good people that don't have their head in the sand. Like there's those people that are so happy and so positive and so grateful and so blessed and so, oh my God, all the time that it's like, I don't believe
suspicious.
I don't believe a word you say. But there's other people, and like I think for me personally, I think my like laughing at cat rape. I'm very aware that there's other people out there that have had horrible, horrible experiences that will find that very in so much bad taste.
Yeah.
But I've stared down so much darkness within myself, and I've stared down so much darkness in the world around me that I find humor in it. I find humor in the things I've gone through. I know folks who have
really, 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 really atrocious stories who find humor in, like, where I'm like, I should be joking about this. They're like, oh no, I've actually, I'm through to that.
Yeah.
And now,
like I make jokes about suicide because I've been suicidal multiple times in my life. I make jokes about my dad.
But have you ever done it?
Have I ever done it?
Yeah.
Have I ever killed myself? Unless this is something other than what I think it is, no. I come close though. And like I make jokes about my dad like dying while shitting himself, because that's not shitting himself, but on the toilet, because that's objectively funny to die taking a shit. I'm sorry, but that's hilarious. And like when you stare down the darkness, you get to laugh at things that other people don't get to.
You get to laugh. That's the thing. That's a thing right now that is like that's not that's one of those compromises that I make in how I choose to speak. It's like it's not sound to me, the idea that certain folks, because of their experience or identity, are the ones who are allowed to say the same thing that a different, because that's what division.
Oh, I don't think it's
like,
allowed.
But
I just think I just get the joke.
I'll still play along, and there's things that I won't say that I'll just wait for the person who's allowed to say them in the current socio-cultural context. You know, I'll wait for them to say it and be like, and I don't think that's right or logical, but it's a compromise that I'm willing to make because here is where we are. And the truth that I always find is that there's always somebody who is the exact identity who is allowed, not just allowed, but is like it's really important for them to say, like United States soldiers who served in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that my saying them don't have as much levity as if somebody who say was critically wounded. And their life was forever changed as they were over there doing that.
Yeah.
And if they can speak on these things, and it has intense gravity, and you should really listen. That's a really good example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a friend like that.
Yeah.
He got hit with some shrapnel and blew out the front of his mouth. And he's one of the kindest, most loving, generous, just wonderful human beings I've ever met in the course of my entire life. And he makes jokes, and they're so much funnier because he's saying it. And he makes points about the VA and how we treat vets and all kinds of shit. And it's just, it hits more because he's saying it, and because he's currently going through it, and because he has a Purple Heart, and he got his face blown off, and like, yeah.
I think I have several disabled vet friends, but one particularly comes to mind who, like, he just got, there was a documentary about the battle that he was in, but he pretty much just watched all of his friends get mowed down over the course of a week. Like just observed so much death and was critically critically disabled isn't the word. I'm not good with the jargon, but he's a disabled veteran, and he makes all the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
He makes jokes about his own personal injury a bunch.
Yeah,
I haven't hung out with him for a while, but like I remember he was just it was just do a personal stand-up comedy routine about the fact that I'm now a cripple, sort of thing.
I think that's one of, like I can laugh about mental illness because I've dealt with it my entire life. I can laugh about suicide. I can laugh about all kinds of fucked up shit that I've gone through. Like I've been sexually abused before. I can laugh about that. And I think that's a sign of someone who's kind of recovered. Like, but if they're not laughing barometer to cover up the pain,
yeah, it's a good. Well, and that's so obvious when it's which one it is.
Yeah, it's like
yeah. With that whole thing, like I laugh at a ton of my own stuff. I always try to, and I do see it as a barometer of like, okay, I'm really able to make light of this, and publicly, or because just to be able to say something to someone else. Like there's stuff I don't have to say about me. And I'm realizing that more and more. Like there's a couple things in my origin story that like I don't need to say that, and I could probably avoid a whole bunch of uncomfortable moments. Like if the game is to avoid discomfort, I probably shouldn't talk about that. But I'm finding there's something really good in it. I should probably pick my venue. But yeah.
And read the room.
Yeah, sort of thing. And and sometimes with audience situations, there's like there's the one person who that took them to a dark place, and there's a bunch of other people where it was like, oh my god, that was so good and healing, or that was just so interesting, or just and I don't know really what to think about that, because there's no such thing as I don't think there's really much thing as profound with what we would call, like, when we say like safe spaces, like the idea of emotionally safe expressions. The turtle's really close. Some of the things this turtle goes close, but it's also, I've been being hyper positive with the songs. Like, you is always home when your home is with you. I go to blow a distant kiss to you when I forget that this is so. But it is always true. Home is always in you. You feel alone when you forget this true, but it is always, always so, because home is... But, so like that's going on the positive end of something that if you could talk about on the negative side is hyper depressing, or depressing is a weird word, because it's like, you know, it's not like you're depressed. But, you know, what that song and that the vibe that is generated when it is done correctly, what that speaks to is something that on the negative side of it is like, there's people who never feel home, people who never had home, there's people who have had a house but never felt home, never had like the whole thing that is home. And then there's some folks, and I'm working on being this myself, where like I can generate home far away from the house.
Well, I've had experiences where I had an experience where I wrote something basically talking about the psychological conditions that cause guys to be horrible to women, cause them to be grab asses and sexual harassers and rapists and all that shit, like the societal and psychological experiences that cause a guy to go down that route. I wrote about that, and I put it on Facebook.
I feel like it's... When I see... Like, I saw that video of, like, the dude grabs the waitress's ass.
And she slams the fuck at him. So good.
And it's wonderful because it's immediate justice.
Yeah.
What do they call that? Something
instant
justice
karma.
porn? Oh, instant karma or justice porn. It was great. It was just... And you know what? As I was watching, too, and I don't usually... My mind doesn't usually do this, but I was like, couldn't she have dropped an elbow, too? Like, is it just...
Would it hurt you to do a Stone Cold Stunner?
It didn't look like that. It didn't look like that hurt that much. It was just like he was very much smited.
I mean, she slammed the fuck out of him.
And I wonder what that dude is thinking about these days, or like what has happened since. Because a lot of times, like the being considerate is you need to have a base to start building on.
Oh, he probably got shamed into the ground.
And now, is he taking that shame and just feeling sad and stupid and embarrassed, or is he augmenting his behavior to the point? Because, like, dude, at Burning Man, there was a couple. There was one in particular. There was a guy.
Hold on. I was making a point about what you were saying.
Okay.
The thing is, because I wrote this thing, I had men and women saying, like, some of the women were saying, wow, like, thank you so much. It's so good to understand, like, where this comes from. So now I can understand this, and I can conceptualize this, and I can see, like, where the causes are, and I can figure out what work can be done other than just shaming people. And then there was guys that were like, holy fuck, bro, like, you really put a lot of words to experiences that I'd had but never knew how to talk about. And so it was tremendously healing for the majority of people that talked to me about their experience reading it. But there was a small minority of people, about 5 people, that told me that it essentially re-triggered their rape trauma.
Well, the subject being brought up,
yeah,
and that's the thing with all things like that. It's like the invocation of the subject as a whole is a problem for someone who is not actively engaged in trying to whatever you want to call it, heal or actualize is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so and I don't think that it's, and this is where the thing of like you know, if there should be a line in comedy, this is where, I mean, before I just thought it would just sound off that like jokes are jokes, but now it's like it's more complicated for me as an individual because I'm very, very big on, you don't get to decide when somebody does the right thing for themselves. You know, you don't. That is totally their choice, and it'll be super duper ineffective if it's forced upon them, sort of thing.
But doesn't that also work in censorship?
Sure. No, that's why it's complicated. But for me personally, as an artist making decisions of what to talk about and whatnot, like I've decided to go super duper sneaky route because it wasn't feeling good for me anymore, knowing that like, oh, what's the ratio tonight? 90% love it and see that I'm like really trying to like, have this psychotherapeutic confrontation with this dark thing in reality and transmute it into something, whatever. And maybe 20% are like just like I hate him, and I hate what's going on, and I feel sad because of what was spoken today. Because that always with the nonsense man thing. Like I'm seeing there's a differentiation between like when I have a nonsense man performance as opposed to like I did a thing at Burning Man this year where it was like it was so that, and I was just flowing and didn't have time to really consider, and I did the thing that I used to do. That used to be like one of my main things. That was like the thing I was most excited to do in a performance is find myself in a place where I got everybody's trust, and now I can bring up some super duper dark shit and go and try to have somebody who's not in that reflex already like be laughing at something that was horrible to them before, and like and perhaps say heal in that way or just whatever. Just like we have that group therapy thing that happens, and I brought up man's relationship with cow.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, can I talk about a super duper dark thing with like an uplifting, upbeat voice? It's like, how about man's relationship with cow, huh? What does the cow or it ended with and I talk about like what grows on the cow's feces? Psilocybin mushrooms, which might have been the thing that led us to the technological advancements and whatnot for where we now have slaughter factories and like and what does the cow say? Mom. What does the cow say? What is what the cow says backwards? What's one of the things that is really enjoyable to do when you're on psilocybin mushrooms? And it's like, whoa, that's dark. And I went way more into it and whatnot.
I believe it.
Because it was one of those things where it's like, I mean, I could say the word channeled, but that's what it feels like, where it's like, whoa, I'm watching myself talk now. And like, oh my God, is it saying that? Is it saying that?
But so with that, what I'm trying to get to is like, I have two minds on the subject. One is like, you're always going to upset somebody, so fuck it. And the other is like, if I wrote something designed to enlighten people, and for at least 5 out of 25 people, I brought back memories of one of the most horrific experiences a person can have. Where's the line? Because that was me being honest. That was me doing a service that I think the world desperately needs. But it was put into an avenue that, I guess people always have an option whether or not to read it, and then people always have an option whether or not to do anything.
Well, it's humbling to know that you're not the medicine for everybody. You're like, there's a specific group of people to which you're going to, as they say, resonate with, and then there's some people where it's gonna be like, fuck that guy. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you're always gonna piss off somebody. So it's like you can say so fuck it, or you can say I have a choice between upsetting some people or being silent. And the thing is, I feel, especially now that I got the magical turtle medicine, I feel a deep, terrible remorse about what it would be like to have 10 years go by and to not put tons of effort into this, knowing that I could have and what it could have been for people, especially now just with the one, because I pretty much just tested this out at Burning Man now, and I got to see adults weeping and children lighting up, and like it was just so good. The cow thing wasn't said when there was children around. That was at 3 a.m. at Burning Man.
I don't think they would have conceptualized it anyway.
Yeah. Post 3 a.m. in Black Rock City, you can take some liberties.
All right, so I actually have to cut this short because I have been ignoring my work duties.
Short. This hasn't been short. This has been a whole thing.
Yeah, this has been a whole thing. So thank you, Zachary Winchester. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris Roscoe.
Oh yeah, we will see you guys next time on the nonsense thing.
Hooray!
Are you still recording? We are. Why is this thing not stopping? Okay.